Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. We're getting real close to Christmas. Good time to take a look at Christmas with the Superheroes from DC Comics. This is issue number 2. Now, issue number 1 had been released the year earlier. And I did a review of that last year. You can find it on the channel. And it was an anthology of reprints of Christmas stories from past issues of DC Comics. Now, this one, also an anthology, and note the lovely cover by Stephen DeStefano. This one is an anthology of new stories, newly written stories from a variety of people, also edited by Mark Waid. So let's jump in. As you can kind of see, pretty thick for one of these old comic books. We're not going to linger heavily over every single story, but a few of them are worth taking a look at. Now, obviously, if you can find this one, I would recommend it. I think it's pretty darn good. So our first story is Ex Machina. This is written and drawn by Paul Chadwick. And if that name's familiar to you, probably would know him from having done Concrete. And I don't mean he poured concrete. Well, maybe he did pour concrete. I don't know what the guy's done with his whole life, but I'm talking about the very cool indie character Concrete that was, quite popular back in the day. And so this is a Superman tale. It's pretty, pretty straightforward one. And it has a lot of heart in it. And almost a tragedy. So it opens on this very snowy night, and this man whose car has stalled on him is trying to flag somebody down to help him. And people keep going by. And as you can see from that panel there, he has pretty well lost all hope. That's not a good thing around the holidays. And so he gets back in his car, and he's freezing, and the cold hurts. He can barely feel his hands. And he contemplates ending it all. And just as he's about to do exactly that, there's a knock on the car window. And it happens to be Superman. And you would expect Superman, he probably saw what was happening as he was flying by. So he gets in and starts chatting with the guy, uses his heat vision to warm him up. Obviously, puts it on mild, so he's not setting anybody on fire. And starts questioning the guy. Well, he's also going to warm up the engine. He says it might take a little while. If I do it too fast, it will, crack the engine block. So he asks him, he sees the firearm. He says, why? And so what we get then is a conversation about the problems this guy has had recently in his life. Divorce, losing his child. He has a daughter. They haven't spoken for a long time. And so he also kind of is asking Superman, what were you doing out here? And, well, there was almost an accident at a Minuteman missile site. And Superman can't talk much about it, but the danger was averted. And so he basically says, look, there's some things that you can do, to deal with some of these problems that you have. He's trying to talk him through it. Here we have the bit, he says, I have no family to speak of. I have a daughter. We haven't spoken in years. Why not? It was who she married. Actually, I didn't object so much as my wife, but when you live with someone, you try to present united, so why not call your daughter? It'd be so awkward. She must hate me. She wouldn't want it. Listen, I don't mean to preach here, but there's one thing I know. No person who's lost his or her parents wouldn't like to get them back, even one of them. This is something I know. Obviously, this is a reference to his being an orphan Maybe she'll invite you for Christmas dinner. No. She lives in Metropolis. New Year's then. I don't know. My friend, your disease is a long, hard way to go. Nobody should die alone in this world. If not for yourself, do it for me. I'd like to think I didn't stop here for nothing. So, it's a tough little story about this, but it seems like he maybe does some good here, and I like where it gets down to Superman taking the time to save a single life after having maybe saved the entire world. And as he flies away, you see the little pieces of the gun falling to make sure that wasn't going to be an option. And he sends the guy to a place where he can warm up and get something to eat. A couple people, older people he knows that helped him out once. And so the guy takes the exit to Smallville. So a nice little story, decent art. But I dig it. And the first few stories in this book are definitely, they're not like yay happy tales, right? But they're meaningful. This next story, And in the Depths, a Batman story, well, somewhat a Batman story, written by Dave Gibbons, drawn by Gray Morrow. It's very nicely drawn, and it's basically about the Batcave and going, through the years, centuries of this cave and what's happened in it, including Bruce Wayne finding this cave as a child. That's a later addition to the Batman stories. The Golden Age Batman doesn't even seem like he grew up in the estate where the Batcave is. But we see him returning to it as an adult. We have him moving down with Alfred. Again, Golden Age. Alfred didn't join right away. He didn't raise Bruce Wayne. So I guess you could say this is more Silver Bronze Age Batman. And there he is, putting on the costume. And the introduction of Robin. And those two working together. Really well drawn. And of course it goes through Dick, growing up, going to college, Hudson University, and Batman once again left on his own. And so one night we see, Batman being injured. The bats are flying about. And flying into the cave for shelter is a little bird. Also maybe injured or maybe just exhausted or freezing from the cold. And he alights, on this table. You see kind of the trophies in the background. And the bats have maybe caught sight or scent of him, or I guess maybe heard him. And so the Robin, because it does turn out to be a Robin, manages to scare them away and then fly away on his own. For without darkness, light has no meaning. And long though the night has been, it cannot last forever. So a nice little moody piece, I dug it. And the Gray Morrow art is really nice as well. Obviously it's tangentially a Batman story. Now the next one is a Wonder Woman story by Eric Shanower, who, I guess maybe he drew it too, wrote and drew it, yeah, because we just have the colorist, Tom McGraw, and editor Mark Waid. So this, of course, is the I guess maybe we'll call it the third version of Wonder Woman, initiated by, George Perez. I remember specifically. I think he wrote and drew. At any rate, this is post-crisis Wonder Woman. We'll put it that way. And so it begins with her having this nightmare, and she's kind of going through a crisis of confidence in the Greek gods. They've not proved as trustworthy as she once thought. And so at the same time, this woman is visiting the woman and her daughter who Diane is, had been staying with, she's friends with up in Boston. So she's coming for this visit, and she's going through something very similar. She's a pastor, and her husband has just filed for divorce because he was having an affair with another person on the church council. And the typical way they handle these things, I guess, is that, when there's that kind of a divorce, a pastor needs to go find a new flock. And she's not real happy about this. She likes where she is. She's thinking, well, maybe I'll go back to school. Her friend's like, school? Are you sure? I don't think that's what you really want to do. The daughter gets home. And then while the woman is out, maybe taking a little walk, Wonder Woman shows up and kind of surprises her. And so, they're chatting, and, she asked, you're the Christian minister. I've read much about the Christian religions. What are it wouldn't be religions, but it's okay. But what are your duties? Oh, what a question. I'm a counselor, a community leader, activities coordinator, the list goes on. But most importantly, I tell people of the love and salvation that can be found by living in Christ. Recently, however, I've been thinking about getting out of the pulpit. And so there's sort of this meeting of these two people, and it's really nice art, of two people who are having a certain crisis of faith. And so they go through, the Christmas traditions. And this is the point where, getting up one night, she sees that Diana is awake, and Diana sort of, they talk things out a little bit. And so it kind of brightens everything back up. And, she sort of talks Diana out of her own crisis of faith. Because Diana's trying to bring this message of peace to mankind, and mankind's not really paying attention. Well, to me, that's always a little bit of a simplification. The vast majority of mankind lives in peace with their fellow human beings. It's a few people that like to cause most of the problems, but and getting those few people to, well, anyways. But so she's like, I just don't know what good. It's so difficult. And so Julia there says, Diana, I know, but believe me, if it weren't so difficult, the good wouldn't be so important. I'm sorry, her name is Sharon. I know you're right, Sharon. I just feel so confused and scared. So do I, Diana. But that's why we need to hold on to love and peace and truth to help others hold on to. And so they have a nice Christmas morning, and, a few things have been resolved. So it's a nice little story about faith and holding on to one's principles and trying to hold on to the good in the face of all the bad stuff that goes on. It's a nice one. Now, this is one that really got me. Silent Night. This is a story of Enemy Ace. And it is written and penciled by John Byrne and finished by Andy Kubert. And what I dig is that Byrne tries to put it in the style of Joe Kubert, who, of course, was one of the creators, along with Bob Kanigher. Man, those two created so much, of Enemy Ace. So this would be set during World War I. We see a British airplane downed. Now, Silent Night, it's called that for a reason. There's no dialogue in the entire piece. And we have an injured boy, probably a pilot, drawing an airplane, showing it to the nurse. They're trying to get along. And we have this man here who, and maybe that was his aircraft that was shot down, who's just angry. He's just angry. People are dying and he's injured. It looks even like he almost looks like he might have lost a leg. And the supplies are getting really low, and you see all these people who are missing. So he's raging at the boy, not because of anything the boy did, but just because of all that he's going through. And then they hear an aircraft approaching. And of course, there's some fear and some danger involved in that. And coming outside, they see a German pilot has landed. Of course, that's Enemy Ace. And he carries with him supplies. Well, the cook is very happy to get them. He runs off to cook dinner. The nurse asks him to stay. And so you see them having dinner. And the nurse puts on a record, and they're dancing for a moment. And here's the boy who maybe he's feeling a little jealous, but he does know that there's an enemy standing there. And Enemy A sees the list of the pilots who are missing, and he approaches, and there's a good chance he's responsible for shooting a lot of them down. And he salutes. And then we can see somebody holding a gun on him. Is it the angry man who is going to finally have his revenge? Well, no, in fact, it's the younger man. And he's holding the gun right at him. And a hand pulls the gun down, and it is that man. He's pointing up, and that could refer to two things. It could refer to it's Christmas, and he's pointing upwards towards God in heaven, that we're not going to do that. Could also be saying, we'll settle this in the air. This man's brought us food. We've invited him in. We're not going to do this. So he drops the gun, to his side. And he goes to shake the man's hand, and he's like, no, you need to leave. Because, after all, we are enemies here. Kisses the nurse's hand, strides out. Really nice piece, really well drawn. They captured the look of Joe Kubert pretty darn well. So this is, to me, a real highlight of this one. If anything was going to get reprinted again somewhere, this, I think, should be one of them. John Byrne did a fantastic job. So now we've seen some very moody sort of stories and more serious stories. A little bit of joy in the Wonder Woman one. This is a little more fun. And this is about the Justice League of America back in the old days. We're talking about Barry Allen and Hal Jordan. So not the Wally West Flash that was in the Justice League at the time. Bill Loebs script, Colleen Doran pencils, Ty Templeton inks. So these two are, spending. I guess Flash had the monitor duty on the Justice League satellite, and so he was up there alone. Green Lantern came to keep him some company. They're kind of laughing about a gift from Green Arrow. And they say, okay, we're done with monitor duty. Let's go down and have a real old-fashioned Christmas. So they find this small town, and it's not snowing. It's raining. And, here, give some money to the Santa Claus to feed the poor. Yeah, right, money. That's what Christmas is about, isn't it? You're nothing without money. People are scum. So they're like, wow, he's in a really good mood. This is great. So they see an old man getting mugged, get into their fighting togs, and go ahead and deal with it very easily. The old man turns out to be a very wealthy man. And he's like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of Christmas and Santa Claus, and none of it's real. He's lost his happiness. He's lost his faith in mankind in generally. And they're going, look, there's lots of good folks out there. Yeah, whatever. Says, I'd be willing to give $5 million to anyone who could prove to me that Santa Claus exists in this town. But you won't. No one will. No one is worth a damn. And Barry Allen's like, are you serious? $5 million? And he goes, hey, man, if anybody can do this, it's us. So, of course, with the Green Lantern's ring, they whip up a sleigh. Flash is going to pull it. Well, at one point they say, well, where are we going to get presents for all the kids? Like, all the stores are closed. And Flash is like, well, not in Hawaii. And so, and then right back, and he's got a bag full of toys. So these guys, along with this dude, are going to every house in town to deliver presents. And at the first one, this old dude is playing Santa. So he gives some presents out to these kids, and they're kind of like, well, okay, we saw him. I thought it would be a little more inspiring somehow, because the dude's still pretty grim. So they go to a few more places. A woman who's trying to put the bikes together for her kids. Her husband had ordered them. He had passed away, and she didn't know how to put these things together. So the guy's like, well, I used to be pretty good at that. So it takes a while, but he apparently does get them put together. They next go to this house. Turns out it's the fellow's Jewish. You can see he's got the menorah back here. And he's talking about, yeah, well, I'm all alone, but, I work on, Christmas so that, my Christian friends can have the day off. And, he's mostly just, yeah, if you ever want to come by and talk, Mr. Santa, come on by. He's just a lonely guy. So they finally say, well, we haven't, have we missed anyone? It's 6 a.m. at this point. And Flash goes, yeah, we did. According to the phone book, we've overlooked one family, the Harpers. Well, it turns out the Harpers' house had burned down, and they're staying in their car. And so Green Lantern and Flash are like, well, I guess we blew it. We failed. Well, you're just going to give up? He goes, well, Santa Claus never overlooks anybody. We didn't do it. So I guess we'll just leave. Sorry we wasted your time. And off they go. And the guy's like, what the? So he approaches the car, knocks on the door, and the guy's like, oh, hey, don't wake up wife and kids. And he's pretty happy that he managed to find a couple little things for them here and there as they wait to get, into a new house. Maybe they won't get into a new house. And so as this guy's talking to him, he's like, look, he goes, look, let me help you. And all of a sudden, yeah, look, turns out if you're missing Santa Claus, you need to be Santa Claus. And of course, Flash and Green Lantern knew that. They sort of set the guy up, and it ends with them all having a party at the old, Jewish fellow's house, bringing people in and, making merry. And so what does Green Lantern say there? We do what we can, sir. Happy Hanukkah, Flash, and a Merry Christmas to you, pal. Easily the most, happy of the tales in the book. Now, the last story from Alan Brennert, writer, Dick Giordano, artist, Steve Haney, letterer, Atomic Art colorist, Mark Waid, editor. Of course, he's the editor on all these. Is a tale of Deadman. And it's a pretty interesting one. And this is, I think, my other favorite in the book. It's Christmas time. And of course, we know Deadman can basically take possession of people and act through them. And so he jumps into this guy who's a millionaire. He's one of those guys who buys companies and chops them up and sells them off, and people lose their jobs, but he makes money, so what does he care? So he has him go into this store, buying presents for all these people that Deadman knew in life, and sending them off to him, and then jumps out of the guy. And so he's flitting around town, feeling very, very, very alone. And for a moment, he jumps into this skater. He jumps over into this guy for it just means to for a minute. But this guy's out with this girl, and he stays for a little while when she kisses him, and he's like, whoa, he hasn't had that sensation in a long time. So he goes to a Christmas party, and he's sort of faking it. And at a certain point, he kind of realizes that what he's doing is maybe not really right. He says, it's not my Christmas at all. It's his, Paul's. I try to tell myself how lucky he is, how I'm only stealing a fraction of his life. But however I look at it, I'm still stealing it. What if this lucky guy were to die tomorrow? What if this were his last Christmas? Hell, what if this were his best Christmas? What right do I have to take that from him? So he leaps out of the guy's body and sails away, saying, well, I'll leave him to figure out what's just happened. So he's feeling very, very, very low, and he's angry at the lords of order that he serves. And he goes, I do all this for everybody, and they don't even know I exist. All the good I do all year, and this is what and then this person approaching says, is that why you do it, for rewards? What? You can see me? Obviously. Cute costume, very seasonal. Thanks, I wear a green one on St. Patty's Day. Who are you? One of Madame Xanadu's smart-ass mystic friends? Me? No, Magic and I have never been boon companions, I'm afraid. And so she basically talks with him, and, do you want recognition? Do you want glory? He's like, no, it's not that, not glory. It's just that this guy used to be a performer, and he loved the roar of the crowd and all that. She finally says, Boston, take off that silly mask and listen to me. We don't do it for the glory. We don't do it for the recognition. We do it because it needs to be done. Because if we don't, no one else will. And we do it even if no one knows what we've done, even if no one knows we exist, even if no one remembers we ever existed. There's a little clue there for you. Yeah, I guess we do. Look, don't mind me. I'm just a putz sometimes, you know? No, you're only human. You are still human, Boston. Don't be ashamed of it. Rejoice in it, because it means your spirit, as flawed or selfish as our spirits can sometimes be, is still alive. Alive, maybe so. The bells of St. Patrick's Cathedral started to chime in the distance, and she started away too soon. Well, I have to go. I have business to attend to. Merry Christmas, Boston. Hey, wait a minute. You didn't, I don't even know your name. My name is Kara, though I doubt that'll mean anything to you. She was right, it didn't. I still didn't know anything about her, other than what she gave me that night, and I've got the feeling I never will, like maybe that was the whole point. Merry Christmas, Kara, whoever you are. With respect and admiration for the works of Otto Binder and Jim Mooney, we still remember. Okay, so now this one, even if you don't know comic books, it's a nice story about the way sometimes we do feel in our lives. But if you do know comic books, and you know this is post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, you know that this person, this spirit who has met him, is Supergirl, who was, killed during the crisis and then erased from existence. And this is sort of them saying, hey, maybe in the continuity she's been erased, but we'll never forget. We love her. And if if you grew up with Supergirl, yeah, you did. So there we go, folks. Christmas with the Superheroes, number 2. New stories, although I guess now they were published in 88, so they're not so new anymore. But they were new at the time. Some nice stuff in there. Very meaningful, great art, well written. Worth taking a look if you can find it. So let me know what you think about those stories. Let me know what you think, just about Christmas in general. And the holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas, the whole schmear. Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this little look at this comic book, please maybe think of subscribing or sharing with a friend. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. And I'll hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.